And we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Maine State Legislature. This is the 130th Legislature. My name is Joe Rafferty, and I am a senator down in Senate District 34. And this morning we are here for a confirmation hearing. But prior to that, I would like to introduce my committee members, give them a chance to say hello. Start with my co-chair, Representative Brennan.
Good morning. My name is Michael Brennan. I represent District 36, which is part of Portland.
Thank you. Senator Woodson, please.
Thank you. Senator Dave Woodson, District 33, which is in southwestern York County.
Thank you. Representative Crockett.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Ed Crockett, District 43, which is part of Portland and part of Falmouth.
Thank you. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Dodge, House District 97, Belfast, Northport, and Waldo.
Thank you. Representative Lyman.
Morning, Sheila Lyman, District 74, J, Livermore Falls, part of Livermore, and I'm here at Augusta. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative, not here. Representative Millette.
Good morning, Rebecca Millette. I represent House District 30, which is most of Cape Elizabeth.
Thank you. Representative Roach.
Good morning, Tim Roach, District 7, Wells.
Thank you. Representative Salisbury.
Good morning. I am Sue Salisbury, and I represent House District 35, which is part of Westbrook.
And Representative Stearns.
Good morning. My name is Paul Stearns. I represent House District 119, Piscataqua, Wisconsin.
Thank you, folks. So as I mentioned, this is a public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs for the purpose of considering the nomination by the governor of Ms. Cordelia Pittman of Portland for the appointment to the State Board of Education. Under the law and joint rules of the legislation, the committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend confirmation or denial of the nominee by a majority vote of the committee members present and voting. As chairs of the committee, we will then send a written notice to the committee's recommendation to the President of the Senate. The committee will hear testimony from and have an opportunity to question the governor or her representative, the nominee, and any other persons present who wish to speak or for or against the nomination. This meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel, which means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People testifying cannot be seen or heard until they're called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting has concluded. And pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the Maine statutes, which requires that there be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes Representative Brennan for the purpose of making such a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs recommend confirmation of Ms. Cordelia Pittman of Portland for appointment to the State Board of Education.
Thank you, sir. And I will now recognize Mr. Joe Boucher from the governor's office to speak to the nomination.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Joe Bushy, and I'm the Deputy Director of Boards and Commissions for Governor Mills. I'm here today on behalf of the governor to speak in support of the nomination of Cordelia Pittman as a member of the Maine State Board of Education. State Board of Education acts in an advisory capacity to the Commissioner of Education in matters concerning state education laws and makes education policy recommendations to the legislative and executive branches of state government. The board's responsibilities also include overseeing approval of school construction projects for receiving state funds, administering federal funds awarded to Maine for career and technical education, establishing standards for teacher certification, approving educator preparation programs, and recommending institutions of higher education for degree granting authority. The board consists of 9 voting members and 2 non-voting student members. No more than 5 voting members are allowed to represent either of the congressional districts. Ms. Pittman attended Middlebury College, where she received her bachelor's degree in physics. She went on to receive a master's degree in architecture from the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation from Columbia University. She began her career as an architect with Sasaki Associates before moving on to Winton Scott Architects. She remained with Winton Scott for 15 years before taking a job with her current firm, Wright Ryan Construction. She's been with Wright Ryan Construction for the past 12 years. During that time, she's been involved in developing, planning, and building several education-oriented buildings. Outside of her work, Ms. Pittman's a board member of the Blaine House Commission, the Maine Climate Council, Coastal Enterprise Incorporated, the Portland Society of Architects, and the Maine Affordable Housing Coalition. On behalf of Governor Mills, I ask that you support the nomination of Cordelia Pittman of Portland, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions at this time, folks? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to recognize Ms. Cordelia Pittman for the purpose of making a statement concerning the nomination.
Good morning, Senator Joseph Rafferty and Representative Michael Brennan and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs, and also Mr. Boucher. So my name is Cordelia Pittman of Portland, Maine, and I'm here today to discuss with you my nomination to the State Board of Education. So I've been a resident of the state of Maine since 1990 when I moved here from New York City. As noted, I'm a licensed architect in the state of Maine and have spent the last 30 years working in architecture and construction in Maine and around New England. I've been fortunate enough to work on a wide variety of design and construction projects involving educational facilities, and I've worked really closely with building committees, superintendents, principals, teachers, students on the new construction and renovations of educational facilities, both as an architect and as a builder. So just a few of the projects I've worked on around the state include the Westbrook Regional Vocational Center. We did a rehab to the University of Maine ice hockey arena. I worked on the new Waynfleet Lower School, which is a passive house project. Also Bowdoin dorms, which are also passive house projects. I've also worked on the Mount Blue High School, which was a renovation and new construction. I've done years of work with Mecca, just getting more educational opportunities into their existing facility. So, these are all really interesting educational projects with the classic challenges of budget, space, need to plan for the future while satisfying the needs of today, and sometimes the conflicting desires of the school communities. So, my experience with educational facilities has really been both on the design side, so translating the needs and regulations into program, then translating program into design, and then on the construction side, developing ways of translating the design into constructible solutions that can get built within the budget and on time. I also have, that's sort of on the professional side. As on the personal side, both of my children attended Portland Public Schools, both graduating from Portland High. They're both at Tulane University in New Orleans right now, and one is about to graduate, which is amazing to me, with a major in biomedical engineering. So I would honestly say that they received an incredible education through the Maine public school system. And also sort of, on the question of sort of what am I doing here today, one of the things I have really appreciated about the state of Maine, as I said, I come from New York City, is just the accessibility of governmental institutions and the opportunity for ordinary citizens to meaningfully participate in government. My sort of example of that is I applied to the City of Portland's Historic Preservation Board and served on that board for 11 years. So giving back with my time and my experience to a city that I really loved. So, I don't come with an incredible amount of deep background in educational policy, but I do have a great amount of experience. What I can bring to the Board of Ed is a lifetime of professional experience designing, building, and using educational facilities throughout the state of Maine and in New England. And I would be really honored to serve on the State Board of Education. And so I'm very happy to take any questions at this point in time.
Are there any questions of Ms. Pittman from the committee? Representative Crockett, followed by Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Pittman, I was very excited to hear that your children are fellow Portland High School Bulldog graduates, as am I. And I just wanted to give them a shout out. And it's wonderful to hear how well they're doing at Tulane. Public school education is outstanding in the state, and your children obviously exemplify that. And I want to thank you for your awesome parenting and future efforts here with the Board of Education.
Thank you.
Representative Dodge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also do not have a question, but just want to say thank you for your willingness to serve and for bringing your background and expertise into the service of the state of Maine. Thank you.
Representative Millett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Ms. Pittman. I'm very excited about your background. I'm curious if you have thought about how to bring your knowledge forward within the conversation of Maine's public education infrastructure.
I think that's a great topic, and some of the things that I think about on that topic are just sort of ways of procuring construction, ways of construction, ways of procuring design, and just how are we designing educational institutions for the future? What is that future? It is, I think it's a very broad topic. And so what I can bring to that is kind of just the experience I have in the field. What is literally happening now in construction? What are sort of the most, current developments? How do our educational facilities reflect the education we're trying to bring to our students? You think about some of the exciting developments in Maine, like the potential for building with CLT. And at the same time, you think, at the same time, it all has to be tempered with the idea that we do have, we are seeing a decline in school age kids. I know that there's a serious cliff in 2025 of college freshmen. I don't know quite how that plays through our entire educational system. I would honestly love to see more families with school age kids moving to Maine. I don't know what to say more about that, but I do think it's a huge and really interesting topic, and I'd love to bring whatever I can to the service of the Board of Ed without kind of trying to steamroll anybody, with ideas that are unnecessary to bring up. But I think there's an awful lot of opportunity there. I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, thank you. Any other questions at this time, folks? Seeing none, and prior to going into seeking additional comments from folks in attendance, I'm going to give a moment to Representative Sampson to introduce herself. Morning, Representative.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Sorry for being a little late. I am State Representative Heidi Sampson, representing the good people of House District 21, Alfred, Limerick, Shapley, Newfield, and Parsonsfield. And I was actually out enjoying the lovely weather right here at the state capitol.
Well, thank you very much. Just so we're aware that anyone who has made a written statement or sent a written statement, oh, excuse me, there's no one to stop that. I'll be right back. My apologies, but that would have just kept ringing if I didn't do something. In any case, folks, so if you have sent any written statement, that those have been shared with the committee members and will remain on file relative to Ms. Pittman's nomination, pending nomination. For those of you that wish to speak in person, they have been registered with the committee clerk prior to the start of the hearing. You'll be called upon shortly. And I only ask that you state your name and only comments appropriate to the suitability of this particular nominee for this particular position will be considered in order. And all other comments will be considered out of order. And after you're done speaking and there are no more questions from the members, you'll be returned to a attendee. I would at this time invite and recognize Wilson Hess as chair of the Maine School Board. Good morning, Mr. Hess.
Thank you, Chair Rafferty, and Representative Brennan, and the stalwart members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. First, let me apologize. The internet's not being kind to me today, so I'm working on a backup satellite system. I hope my message comes through clearly. My name is Wilson Hess. I'm chair of the State Board of Education, and I'm here today on behalf of the State Board to speak in support of Cordelia Pittman as a nominee to the State Board of Education. A major activity of the State Board is to oversee the planning and awarding of over $100 million in new school construction annually. This process is governed by a complex and detailed major and substantive rule that has served the people of the state well, but is in much need of revision. At this important time, the nomination of Cordelia Pittman offers a candidate for the State Board who has a reputation of over a quarter century as a distinguished architect and builder to this area. Ms. Pittman brings extensive public service as a member of Portland's Historic Preservation Board, the Blaine House Commission, the Portland Society of Architects, and the Maine Affordable Housing Coalition. She has designed and built many educationally oriented buildings ranging from vocational schools, classrooms, dormitories, dining halls, very impressive list. Her experience with multiple sustainably designed buildings, including LEED certified passive house and other well building strategies, offers much valuable insight and forward thinking to this important state board function at a time that we believe is vital to the future of Maine school infrastructure. This is a most welcome addition to the state board. We offer our enthusiastic endorsement of the nomination of Cordelia Pittman to the State Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Appreciate that. And are there any questions of Mr. Hess at this time? Seeing none, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Hess for testifying, and you have a great day.
Mr. Chair.
Morning. I'd also like to welcome Senator Daughtry. I'll give you a moment if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm Maddie Daughtry, and I represent State Senate District 24, which are the communities of Brunswick, Harpswell, North Yarmouth, Freeport, and Pownell.
Thank you. So in the event that we have all public comments having been taken, the committee will now proceed with and has had an opportunity to review any written comments that that have come in. And we will move towards a vote on the nomination to notify the President of the Senate pursuant to Title III of MRSA Section 157 of the Joint Rules. So the vote must be taken within 35 days from the date of the governor's written notice. In any case, seeing that we have no additional comment or question, I'm going to call the hearing to a close on that. And I will proceed as follows. Excuse me. In accordance with the law, the committee may not take the vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearings unless all committee members who are present agree. At this time, therefore, I will inquire as to whether any members object to the proceeding to the vote immediately. Are there any objections to proceeding to the vote immediately? Seeing none, then I will assume that we are all in agreement to proceed. So the pending question before the committee is that the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs recommend to the state of the 130th Maine Legislature the nomination of Ms. Cordelia Pittman of Portland for appointment to the State Board of Education be confirmed. In accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, and with the joint rules of the 130th Legislature, the vote will be taken by yeas and nays. A vote of yea will be in favor, a vote of no will be against, and is the committee ready for the question? And I will ask then that the committee clerk, if you would be kind enough to please call the roll.
Yes, Senator. Senator Rafferty.
Yay.
Senator Rafferty votes yay. Senator Daughtry.
Yay.
Senator Daughtry votes yay. Senator Woodsum.
Yes.
Senator Woodsum votes yes. Representative Brennan.
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette.
Yay.
Representative Millette votes yay. Representative Dodge.
Yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett.
Yay.
Representative Crockett votes yay. Representative Salisbury.
Yay.
Representative Salisbury votes yay. Representative Stearns.
Yay.
Representative Stearns votes yay. Representative Sampson.
No.
Representative Sampson votes no. Representative Lyman.
Yes.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And Representative Roach.
Yes.
Representative Roach votes yes. So, Senator, the vote is 12-1, 12 in favor of the motion. Oh, 11-1. I'm sorry, Senator. 11-1.
Okay. Thank you very much. So seeing that we had 11 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, it is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs that the nomination of Ms. Cordelia Pittman of Portland for appointment to the State Board of Education be confirmed. I want to congratulate you at this time, Ms. Pittman. Welcome aboard and wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, so we are. Folks, if we're set, I think that we wanted to move into a public hearings this morning. We have a number of those to take place. We've had a little bit of shuffling in terms of the order. I know that only because I can't think beyond myself at the second. I believe LD 1207 was number 1. And we had a request for 1114 to be number 2. Is that correct, Mr. Baker?
Yes, Senator, that's all that I heard.
Thank you. So in that, I will be presenting 1207. I'm going to ask that Representative Brennan step into the chair, and the gavel is yours, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. And I'll just look quickly. We have mostly everybody here. So thank you very much. And Sam, did you send me the list of people who have signed up to testify?
I did, Representative, but I can resend it right now.
If you could,
For this one, it's really easy. It's just Stephen Bailey after the senator. So, but I'll resend it right now.
Okay. Okay. And just a list for whomever else, that would be fine. So what I will do is open the public hearing on LD 1207, an act to maintain current level of educational funding. And we welcome the distinguished senator on the Education Committee, Senator Rafferty.
Thank you, Representative Brennan and distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I am Joe Rafferty, and I proudly represent all the people of Senate District 34 in the Maine Senate, and I am here to testify in support of LD 1207, an act to maintain the current level of education funding. I sponsored this bill, and I am testifying today in support of it based on numerous concerns of my own, as well as those addressed to me throughout my campaign. As a teacher and coach for over 40 years, I knew that school funding was directly impacted by student count. Up until February, I was substituting in my old school and became very aware of the numerous concerns the pandemic had on our entire system, and most importantly, our students. Among many of those concerns expressed was one that centered around the absentee rate, which ultimately expanded to, we're losing our kids. Our numbers are down. That statement and others like it hung with me and eventually became the impetus for LD 1207. LD 1207 was designed to protect the communities in my district, as well as your own, from any negative impact that the drop in enrollment may create on your town's funding. I realized and have since learned more about the factors that determine school funding. Some I grasped, the others I'm still learning. Student enrollment is clear to me, and it is my goal to keep that factor constant for building the 21-22 funding to the number used in determining funding that existed in your 2021 funds. In recent conversations with DOE, I learned that changing any variable results in winners and losers relative to funding. We've seen that firsthand in addressing bills we've conversed about over the last few months. We all know that the pie is only so big, no matter how you cut it, some gain, some lose. I tried to eliminate one factor that would ensure a loss. I'm not going to sit here and claim I'm an expert, and by no means do I have all the answers. I still feel no community should get less funding based on a drop in enrollment for this upcoming school year. For that, I ask your support. Looking ahead, regardless of where LD 1207 lands, I've learned enough in my limited time here that you can twist, turn, maybe even create a new formula for funds, but in an effort to create a new formula for funds. But in the end, Until we create a bigger pie, there's no easy way to share the one we have. As a colleague, I'm willing to work with you to create a bigger pie, as I believe education is the foundation on which we will build a better Maine. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can at this time.
Thank you, Senator. And at this point, are there any questions from members of the committee? Representative Sampson, and then Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Rafferty, for your bill. So my question is, are you looking to just maintain the funding for, I'm sorry, they're doing all kinds of yard work outside, and I don't want to close the door. If it's too noisy, let me know. Is it okay? Can you hear me? Even though there's
Yes.
Okay, all right. So my just a quick question. So because there's been a significant decline in enrollment, and obviously we know all the reasons why. If that decline remains after this biennium, I mean, at this point, it's almost 8,000 children have been withdrawn from the public education system. Are you still intending to maintain the funding beyond that? Or what are your thoughts on reflecting the actual enrollment? I understand we're in a difficult time, and I get that. But what are your thoughts on going forward?
Well, in my mind coming in, I said, our numbers currently are low and we're blaming the pandemic. If in fact we find over this next year that there are other issues, I think that those have to surface and we have to address those. I can't predict the future in terms of enrollment. I'm hoping somehow that when we get back on our feet and things go back to normal, that our numbers will rise to a so-called, they'll normalize again. If we have in fact lost 8,000 kids, then we have to create, I guess, some type of search party to figure out how. I mean, they got to be somewhere, and my sense tells me they haven't left Maine just since the pandemic started. So I don't have the answer to that. I would have to honestly say that we need to find out why, and we'd have to revisit how that impacts and what impact that number should have on our budget as we proceed. And that we'd have to revisit the formula is my general thought. But again, that's my first response. Sorry, I hope it helps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sampson. Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Rafferty, the way I read this is, well, let me jump back. The Department of Education already put in many hours in trying to solve the problem by making some temporary adjustments in student counts, etc. With that said, there were they threaded the needle, if you would, and there were still some folks who lost subsidy, but it's very difficult to break out whether that was loss in valuation. There are just so many factors that go into that. So I guess my point is, given that, and given the fact that the final general purpose aid has already been determined for the next school year, I guess, where would you what would we be taking the general purpose aid that's already been finalized? I mean, we've already adjourned the legislature. And would we then supplement that by saying anyone who lost money, we're going to cut you a check?
If, ultimately what my goal was, and it's unfortunate how the timing of the legislature works in terms of, when I started, when you can put the bill in, get it back, process it, those types of things. But the reality is, if we, if there's evidence is clear that District A lost funds because of the student count, then I think that the difference in funding should be returned to them. And whether that comes through, us if we have to find that money. And the process of doing that wouldn't be easy, but I think that a district deserves that funding. That's my position and thought.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none. So at this point, we will accept public comment on the bill. And the first person we have, is it, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Crockett, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. More for the work session. Sam, could we get a report back on which districts may have been shorted based on what we passed before we adjourned for the work session, please?
Yep, I will see what I can get.
Okay. And Sam, I show Ms. Coutier as, is she here to testify?
Representative, after the public hearing started, Dr. Couturier reached out. She's sick today, so we can skip over her
Okay.
for any of the bills that she's signed up for.
Okay, so we would go to Mr. Bailey at this point.
Yep. But Dr. Couturier did say if she needed to be available for the work session to, just be
Okay.
in contact.
All right, thank you. So we will, speaking for the bill is Steve Bailey from Maine School Board Management Association. Mr. Bailey, welcome. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning. Good to see you as well, Representative Brennan. So Representative Brennan, Senator Rafferty, members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee, I am Steve Bailey. I'm Executive Director of the Maine School Management Association, testifying today for the legislative committees of the Maine School Boards Association and the Maine School Superintendents Association in support. And I'm going to talk to both bills today, LD 1207 as well as LD 651. Yes, enrollment had been a specific concern and consideration of superintendents and boards across the state, not only as last year finished up, but as well as 2020-21 started and thinking about their budgets for 21-22. So both of the bills, LD 651 as well as 1207, have the intent of protecting school districts and ultimately property taxes from a decrease in state aid because of a drop in enrollment counts. That's critical because the drop in enrollment doesn't mean you can have less staff or provide fewer course offerings. And with the pandemic, in many cases, school districts were looking to add staff based on the different type of educational experiences they were trying to provide for their students. LD 1207 allows that if the enrollment is down in 21-22, the pupil count for the previous year will be used. LD 651 addresses the issue by using a 3-year average for pupil counts when a district has a decrease of 10% or more in a single year. So they both are trying to address, trying to make up for a loss of students that was hopefully be seen as a one-time event. We support the intent of both bills and appreciate they take into account that districts and regions were affected differently by COVID. That was true when all school buildings were closed during the start of the pandemic and when in-person learning was brought back largely in a hybrid way, some in person and some online due to required safety rules around spacing. While some parents simply didn't re-enroll their children, creating a drop in overall enrollment, we are not sure of the magnitude of that problem or whether it will continue. The department has the most accurate information on statewide numbers. And with that, I would entertain any questions on 1207 or 651.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Are there any questions from members of the committee? I just have one for you, Mr. Bailey. both 1207 and 651 speak to student count. Do you find that more preferable to the approach that the department took of reducing class size to 16?
I think the enrollment calculation is still going to be somewhat needed. I think in terms of the 10% drop that I think is referenced in 651, that may be a preferable consideration. I do know that the department did everything they could, as Representative Stearns mentioned, to try to thread the needle on trying to make it work, for this particular year. 16 definitely helps, but it doesn't take into considerations other aspects of where that enrollment count is needed.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, for being here. Do you have any sense in, when talking to the superintendents statewide, is this a statewide problem of losing students? And have there been districts in Maine that have had great gains because of this COVID?
There have been, and they've been in specific areas where there have, you've seen people move into those areas. And so we're in some of the more remote areas, you've seen enrollment increases, consistent with some of the increases in housing purchases. And initially, it was a concern across the state, and we have seen some of those students return. Yet at the same time, the students who started in a hybrid situation or a remote situation for consistency, many of them are preferring to complete that for this school year, and then waiting to see what will happen for the start of the 21-22 school year.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. And this probably will go into LD 651, so we can talk about it more then. But just about the student counts, one thing that we found in our district, we have a pretty transient population for a number of different reasons, but also we have students that perhaps have tried virtual or charter schools maybe for a year or so and then come back, and people moving in and out of the district, and we have a large ELL population. So I think it wouldn't you agree that by having some of this stabilization, and it helps districts like mine maybe that have that sort of fluctuation from year to year?
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, thank you. Glad we're on the same page with that.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see any other questions from members of the committee for Mr. Bailey, so thank you very much for being here. And I assume that you won't be back for 651.
That's correct.
So and from what I got, it'd be the last time we see you today. So have a good day.
That would be, well, if you get to 10:14, I would be available, I believe, before 11:30. If not, then that would be the last time. I would be available for the work session.
Oh, okay.
For any of these bills, should you like.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, Sam, I'm seeing no other proponents of the bill or opposition or neither for nor against. Is that correct?
Correct, Representative.
All right. So we will close the public hearing on LD 1207, and a work session will be scheduled shortly. So thank you very much. Senator Rafferty, do you want to? You're
yeah. I'm gonna try to go to that other committee, but thank you.
All right, great.
See you shortly.
So we'll go on to public hearing. We'll close the public hearing on 1207. We'll open the public hearing on LD 1114. And is Senator Merrimont here?
Yes, Representative, he's coming in now.
Okay, great. Senator, good morning.
Hello, I'm here.
Thank you. Good to see you this morning. So we're all ready for you. And if you're ready to start, please present the bill.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Rafferty. I hope that I have this right. Representative Meyer, distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Dave Miramont. I proudly represent all the people of Appleton, Camden, Cree Haven, Cushing, Friendship, Hope, Idaho, Matinicus, Muscle Ridge Islands, North Haven, Owl's Head, Rockland, Rockport, South Thomaston, St. George, Thomaston, Union, Vinyl Haven, and Warren in the Maine Senate. And I'm here today to support LD 14 and even present it. LD 1114 to require the state to meet the mandatory 55% contribution to schools. Our school districts are struggling with annual budget increases due to inflation, and communities are resistant to meeting those budget increases by raising property taxes. Our school districts, did that. I was just noting, this is the same testimony from last year, but I threw an extra paragraph in. The situation could be eased if the state was meeting its obligation to fund the 55% of essential programs and services, as was voted upon in a citizen referendum many years ago. Augusta has yet to fully fund the EPS according to the formula. This bill seeks to remedy that. Money collected through income taxes is a fair way to assure that equality. Property tax increases affect those on low or fixed income disproportionately. After so many opportunities to meet the state's commitment and ignoring that responsibility in order to fund pet projects, the 130th legislature needs to draw the line. We need to stop ignoring the law, stop ignoring the citizen referendum, and fully fund the formula. Please help protect both students and property taxpayers by passing this bill. And we did this and shut down the legislature last time, so it's back, but as I'm pointing out, everybody from different directions keeps bringing it back saying, if you're not going to fund it properly, change it. So we're not out there saying, no, we're going to work to get it to 55% while we're out campaigning. And then we come in here and go, aren't we proud that we got it to 51%? Wow, how proud should we be? We should be screaming that not following the law and what we've committed to is not right, and that we should not just keep perpetuating this. But that's enough. Thank you very much. You've heard it.
Okay. Senator, thank you very much. And at this point, are there any questions from members of the committee? Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be a question for the senator, but it might be a more fair question for one of the analysts to bring to us for the work session on this bill. And that is with the recent legislature that just adjourned a few weeks ago, we came as close to the 55% as we've been in a while. And what I'd like to know is, what is the dollar amount to close the gap between where we are with the current amount that was, the amount that was just passed for the biennium, and what the 55% might be. So that would be a good number to have for the work session. Thanks.
Yes, and thank you. I can't answer that, but I'm glad somebody will be able to bring it. And I know you probably have bills about this. I was going to mention and forgot, just fully funding the formula is not the only problem, because we have a real glaring error between Belfast and Rockland for the level of average income, oceanfront properties, tax base, property tax rate, all that stuff. And where there'd be more similar, and the comparison is amazing for how much Belfast gets compared to a Rockland. So the formula's not right either, but funding it so that it could be redistributed properly would be a big goal. Thank you.
Other questions from members of the committee? I just have one, Senator, and I think in response to Representative Stearns' question, when we did some, quick calculations and appropriations, I think the number was around $97 million a year to get to 55%. That was my recollection. But Senator, if I could also ask, and I'm just reading the summary of the bill, in addition to funding essential programs and services, it also seems to indicate that you're funding teacher retirement, teacher healthcare, and teacher life insurance as well.
Well,
or
all of that
or
should
making
be.
some adjustment to that.
Yeah,
Well, maybe not. That's.
I don't know. You know,
Okay.
I want to do the funding, and I like those pieces. If you're saying if those were out that you'd like it better, I just want us to come up with the funding for it. And maybe that's through the next round where we're going to get some extra money. That this was supposedly this bare bones budget. And so we didn't do anything very progressive. We left a lot of stuff on the table. You know, education, well, so your education, I'll just leave it there. I expect us to do more with this, and not just because of my bill, but because that's what was promised. But I hope this is a real priority.
Good. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, we will now go to public comment. And the first person that I see up in the queue is John Kaczynski from Maine Education Association. Is that correct, Sam? Okay.
Yes, Representative.
So Mr. Kaczynski, you are here and we are ready for you. So you can start when you're ready.
Representative Brennan, I believe it's your birthday today. Happy birthday. Perhaps I'm wrong on that. And Representative Meyer, if she's here as well, and all the other esteemed members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is John Kaczynski. I'm here on behalf of the Maine Education Association to testify in support of LD 1114. I've included my written testimony. I just want to reiterate some of the comments that Senator Miramont has made. We are so close to actually achieving the 55%. It is within striking distance. And this comes now on almost 2 decades of the legislature's unwillingness or inability to fund what voters asked for in 2004, and then reiterated again in 2016 with the passage of the Stand Up for Students initiative. Much of this, it wouldn't be a legislative session without a couple 55% bills that we get to come and testify on to continue to try to make the case that the 55% is not only good for students and taxpayers and schools, but it's good policy. It's good policy specifically because of the work that was done, the $500,000 study by PICUS, which reiterated that our school funding formula is equitable, but there's not enough resources in it. And the key word that I always point to when talking to folks about the school funding formula is the word essential, called the essential programs and services. And it's essential, it means the bare bones. I call it the Chevette model of funding schools, not the Cadillac model. And it's been just a grave injustice that we haven't lived up to this and been able to fulfill that goal. But we are now so close. As you said, Representative Brennan, we show that for 21-22, we are just shy of $100 million short of the 55%. And I feel confident, I hope you all feel confident, that while the budget has been established for the next school year of 21-22, that hopefully in 22-23, we can finally achieve this goal. And the number for 22-23 will change because every year the cost of education increases due to inflation and due to special education costs and due to difference in property tax values, et cetera. Those will all impact that figure. But it looks to us like it is within striking distance and we can do this, and now would be the time. What a great thing for the 130th legislature to finally see through this commitment. We have been close in the past. In 2008, we were at 54%. We were inching so close to that 55%. And then the economic collapse happened. And we've been slowly, gradually building our way back up. And again, it's within striking distance. And I'm convinced this legislative session could do it, fulfill its commitment to property taxpayers, students, and public schools, and the educators who work in them. I will say, I also heard that Representative Brennan asked about the UAL piece, and I read that a little bit differently in the bill around teacher retirement. There is a parallel calculation that was included many years ago, which included what I would say are extraneous costs that were not part of the original 55%, including the UAL payment. It's important to note the UAL payment, unfunded actuarial liability, is the payments that the state is required to make per the Constitution due to a constitutional amendment in 1996 that was designed to pay off the debt to the pension that was accrued prior to 1996. So that was even prior to the initiative being passed by the voters. At some point in the around 2013, there was a parallel calculation that was included. It does nothing to move the dial for property taxpayers, including the UAL. It does nothing to move the dial for kids and students. It's just accounting, and it was a parallel calculation. And I saw Senator Miremont's bill trying to remove that parallel calculation because it's wholly unnecessary. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope you all share my enthusiasm for finally getting there in 2023 and finally fulfilling this commitment to the voters of the state of Maine. Thank you for all you do, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Kaczynski. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaczynski, if you were given your druthers, would you rather achieve the 55% or have the state resume their, in my opinion, their obligation for the UAL, which they carried for the employer costs of teacher retirement, which they did for 70 years? If you had your druthers, if you had to pick.
Both. You always give me that Hobson's choice. I think it's what you're always giving me that option, Representative Stearns. But are you finished?
I am, and thank you for your honest answer.
Well, I think, but your point is a good one. I mean, again, I think it was in 2013, we continue to put more on public schools and then not meet the 55% requirement. And one of the things that was added, I believe it was 2013, it might have been 2015, it wasn't the UAL, but the normal retirement costs. So in before 2013, might have been 2015, the state paid the normal retirement cost for the pension cost for all active teachers. The UAL is separate, that's dealt with separately, but the actual cost of the pension for the employer portion. Teachers pay 7.65% of their salary into pension costs, into retirement. Ed Tech 2s and 3s do the same. The state right now, the employer cost is about 4%. It's a good deal for employers, our pension system. But that cost was pushed on to school districts at the time. It was another example of something being added to schools without meeting the 55%. And it has had a negative impact. I know Representative Stearns has put that bill in. We would certainly support, we always have supported pushing that cost back to the state. And the real reason to push it back to the state is because local communities have almost no control over that. That is completely driven by actuarial assumptions made by MEPers, investments made by MEPers. And it really, the only way it impacts, the only way schools have any control over that is simply by how many people they hire and how much they pay them. But both of those are largely driven by local need, not necessarily by retirement costs. So we'd like both, Representative Stearns. We think they're important, but it is another illustration of things continuing to be heaped on schools while not meeting that 55% requirement.
Thanks.
Okay. Are there other questions from members of the committee for Mr. Kaczynski? Seeing none, thank you very much, and thank you very much for your testimony and for being here.
Thank you.
Yep. We will now go to, I guess Ms. Coutier is still out, and we have Michael Foley, the mayor of Westbrook, with the Mayor's Coalition.
Good morning. I think I'm in.
Mayor Foley, good to see you.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you
for
as well.
being with us today. You have one of the more official backgrounds. Typically, when people come to testify, we see all kinds of different backgrounds, but you got an official background that reflects your position in Westbrook. So thank you for being here and thank you for being with us. And
Thank you.
Please feel free to proceed.
Thank you again for having me, and thank you for your comments on the background. I definitely have, in this time of pandemic Zooming, we've been trying to have the best backgrounds as possible, and this is a real life one, as you said, so it is great. And happy birthday to you as well,
thank you.
Mr. Former Mayor and Mr. Representative. I thank you, everyone, for allowing me the opportunity to testify today, and thank you, Representative Salisbury and the committee clerk for your efforts with the schedule. I appreciate that. And I'm honored to be able to speak to you, Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. As introduced, my name is Michael Foley, and I'm mayor of the city of Westbrook. I am here today on behalf of the Mayor's Coalition to testify in support of LD 1114, and specifically to support the state honoring the funding of 55% of education. The Mayor's Coalition is a nonpartisan group formed in 2012, I believe formed by Representative Brennan, and currently includes the mayors of 9 main communities: Augusta, Biddeford, Lewiston, Portland, Rockland, Saco, Sanford, South Portland, and Westbrook, with a combined population of nearly 250,000 people. The coalition advocates for state and federal policies that recognize the important role that Maine cities play in advocating for in providing vital services to Maine people across our state. The positive impact Maine cities have on the economic strength of our state. The coalition seeks to work in partnership with Maine state and federal elected officials to meet the needs of Maine people. We appreciate, as many others have said, the incremental increases that the Mills administration and the legislature have supported in recent years to the state's portion of education funding. An aside on this bill, specifically having heard it talked about being voted on in 2004, that bill, or that support of the Maine residents to support 55% of education, was voted on before I was even eligible to vote when I was a student in school. So it's been a long time that we haven't been able to reach that. However, we note the state funding of 51.83% is still well short of the statutory requirement. This gap in funding falls to municipalities to make through the only source of funding we have for such purposes, namely the property tax. This places a significant burden on our residents and businesses. And I come here to share a specific example today that is happening right now in my community, and Representative Salisbury is well aware. We are faced with what appears to be a status quo budget provided by our school committee, which would result in the largest increase to our property tax in decades. In addition to the financial challenges members of our community are facing caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the last thing we would want to do coming out of this potential recession is raise taxes. Ultimately, a combination of spending reductions and tax increases might be necessary for us to overcome this challenge. Examples like this are happening in communities all across the state. We continue to implore this committee, your legislative colleagues, and the administration to work together to meet the state's statutory obligation of providing 55% of funding to education. When the state underfunds education, it causes municipalities to cut other areas within our budgets and/or increase property taxes, as in the example shared. With improvements in education funding and municipal revenue sharing, this will help our communities to better manage growth in the property tax and allow us to continue to deliver the critical services without drastic impacts. Thank you again for your time and consideration. We urge you all to support LD 1114, and I would be happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foley, and thank you for being here on behalf of Westbrook and for the Mayor's Coalition. Are there any questions from members of the committee? I see that Representative Salisbury has her hand up, so we will call on her for a question. Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor Foley, for being here today and for your presentation on this. It's certainly something I think that we can all agree on. And in the point that you referenced, wouldn't you agree that we're also at a difficult time where we don't know the future of this, whether we'll be able to support this 55% and what that budget looks for. So it's so critical at this time that cities and towns and school boards all work together, because this has been a difficult year and will be difficult to cut some of the funding that we know. Like you said, a status quo budget would be difficult. So we all have to prepare for the worst, especially in a situation like this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I agree. It's given the many challenges associated with the pandemic, in addition to the financial challenges, the challenge of educating our kids and ensuring that they have the resources that they need is important. And education is a significant economic development tool that we use here and advocate for in our community, and we should in our state. As I'm not sure if many of you read the Maine Townsman magazine, a municipal focused magazine. I was featured in an article there that talked about folks moving in droves from out of state to Maine to support our local economy, because they see the great investments that we make in many things, and they want to get out of the bigger cities and the challenges associated with the big cities. So we need to continue to focus on that, use our commitment to education as an economic development tool for our community. And we'll get through these challenges as we always have. I think as one of the other speakers talked about, we were so close in 2008, and I've been serving in my community since about 2004. And it definitely is important that we try to get to that and be able to meet that need and help our communities shift the burden off the property taxpayer and to the responsibility of the state, which is the law of the land.
Thank you. Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Mr. Foley. How are the federal funds? I support the 55%, 100%, but how are the federal funds that are coming in? Will they not be available to help cities and towns offset the tax increases that you're looking at?
Like I said, this budget that is specifically in the example I provided is a status quo budget. In Westbrook, we're blessed to receive approximately $17 million in education funds through the various COVID relief programs. But those funds cannot be used to supplement or to supplant existing ongoing expenses. So I think our school committee and our school administration is doing the best job that they can to make investments in areas and things that they can hopefully avoid having to put in the budget into the future, making the appropriate capital investments to be able to have school during this COVID pandemic time, hopefully to have school in the fall. And so they're doing their best, but a lot of those funds cannot be used to replace ongoing regular expenses. And this example that we have is just an ongoing regular expenses to maintain, properly pay our teachers and staff, and properly support our schools in like I said, a status quo situation. And then the money that is planned for state and local relief, at least the local relief, it's my understanding that those programs can't necessarily be used to offset the tax rate. Obviously, we're still awaiting guidance from the Treasury Department on those funds. But once those are there, it's our understanding they can't be used to mitigate any tax increases here in the community. So we're doing our best to try to strike a balance in that situation, but we will see what those funds are available for into the future. And thank you again for that specific question.
Well, thank you for helping me better understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none. Mayor Foley, thank you again for joining us. And I just want to tell you that Representative Salisbury has been doing a great job representing the city of Westbrook. And we really value the expertise that she brings, having been on the school committee.
Yes, we are very blessed to have Representative Salisbury joining you guys, and we worked hard to make sure she could be there, and we look forward to
So
working
fortunately,
together.
you're not up for re-election for mayor anytime soon, because
No, sir.
you would present a real challenge.
I'm not sure she'd want this job.
Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you again.
All right. So we will now move to Eileen King from Maine School Board Management. Good morning, Ms. King. Good to see you again.
Good morning. I'm not sure. Good morning, Representative Brennan and members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. A little bit of a different intro. I seem to be having some internet problems, and sometimes you're freezing up and I'm getting kicked out. So please bear with me. I'm Eileen King, Deputy Executive Director of the Maine School Management Association, testifying on behalf of the legislative committees of the Maine School Boards Association and Maine School Superintendents Association in support of LD 1114. I have submitted our testimony. I'd like to support the testimonies of Mr. Kaczynski, my colleague, and Mr. Foley. The state voted in 2004 to fund education at 55%. We need to meet this obligation, as you heard this morning, in not doing so. This incurs more expenses on our taxpayers and increases the tax burden when we need to fund education without the promised funds that were voted in 2014. As Mr. Kaczynski said, and I will reciprocate his compliment to me, he hit it out of the park. We continue to add more to our school budgets, such as the increase on the normal share of the health retirement in 2013. And once again, that trickled down to our taxpayers. And it's just time to support the vote that was taken, the referendum in 2004, and to fund our schools appropriately, and also to facilitate or ease the burden on our taxpayers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. King? Seeing none, I think we'll see you on a later bill. So thank you very much for being here. So Sam, has anybody else signed up?
No, that's everyone, Representative.
Okay, so we've gone through the public hearing of those people that have signed up. And so at this point, I will conclude and close the public hearing on 1114. And obviously there will be a work session that will be scheduled. And certainly Senator will let you know when the work session is. So thank you very much.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Yes,
Bye.
you too. And before we proceed to our next public hearing, which is LD 651, I see that Representative McCray has joined us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and say hello, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Dave McCray. Sorry for being late. I was in another committee. But I'm Dave McCray. I represent District 148 up in Northern Maine. I live in Fort Fairview, have all my life, and probably will continue. Thank you.
Well, we're certain you'll be living there for at least the time that you're in office, right? One of the requirements of the job to live in the district.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move, we'll open the public hearing on LD 651. And I will turn to our esteemed colleague, Representative Millett, to present the bill. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and esteemed colleagues of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I am Representative Rebecca Millett, and I represent House District 30, which is most of Cape Elizabeth. I am pleased to present to you LD 651, an act to stabilize student count in Maine school funding formula. During the presentation of the administration's proposed biennial budget, this committee received the news that public school enrollment declined significantly for the academic year 2021, especially in the early elementary grades. The administration proposed a one-year change for the 21-22 school year in the pupil to teacher ratio from 17:1 to 16:1 for elementary schools as the way to mitigate the negative impact on schools' cost of education calculations and funding levels. This was enacted earlier this month. However, the issue will remain for the 22-23 school year, hence the need for this legislation. After discussions with the Maine Department of Education, I am presenting an amendment that we believe will address the issue for those districts that experienced significant enrollment decreases, much like Maine's sudden and severe disruption policy for communities' valuation. My hope is that we won't see precipitous drops in enrollment like this again, but should that not be the case, whether for a single school district or for districts across the state, this is an important insurance policy for those communities. I hope that you will join me in supporting this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Representative. Are there any questions of Representative Millette at this point? Seeing none, we will now move to public comment. And the first on the list is John Kaczynski from Maine Education Association. So welcome back, Mr. Kaczynski.
And that should be the only person, Representative, since Dr. Couturier still isn't with us, and Steve Bailey said he already.
Yep. Mr. Bailey already testified. Yes.
Hello, Representative Brennan, other esteemed members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is John Kaczynski. I'm here on behalf of the Maine Education Association to testify in support of LD 651. I've submitted written testimony. I heard most of what Representative Millette said. I don't have much to add. We believe this bill will help smooth out fluctuations in student enrollment counts. We expect there to still be some volatility in the near future on those. And while we have a solution, at least for the next school year, that was part of the budget that was passed, we know going forward, this is going to could potentially continue to be an issue. In addition, I heard Representative Millette use the term sudden and severe. That's also in my written testimony. This looks to us, the amended version, looks like in some ways trying to mirror the sudden and severe language. And that specifically has been part of our tax structure here in Maine to accommodate or to help adjust in communities where they're seeing sudden and severe fluctuation of property taxes. This became a big deal when we saw a lot of mill closures around the state, and it became a big deal a few years ago because obviously in Southern Maine, we're seeing really escalating property tax valuations. And so this looks to mirror that in the amended version and to apply a similar principle to student enrollment counts. We think it's good policy. We think it makes good sense. And for all those reasons, we ask the committee to consider ought to pass. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Kaczynski? Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this may be for Mr. Kaczynski, or it may be for an analyst or for all of us to ponder moving forward. Certainly, the intent of the bill is a very good one, and mirroring the valuation piece, the sudden and severe, that makes great sense. Has anyone thought of any negative consequences that might occur should a district see a dramatic rise in pupil count? And that happens occasionally. You'll get for whatever reason, factory opens up or et cetera, you get a dramatic rise. Could this legislation potentially put a damper on that unit's ability to?
So Representative Stearns, I'm assuming that's a question for Mr. Kaczynski.
That's correct. That's why I asked.
Okay.
You know, that's interesting. And the only reason I giggled, Representative Stearns, because then it would be identical to the sudden and severe discussion that's happened in this committee, where first it was because the property tax devaluation in some towns, you know, but then we saw property tax increases, and so other towns, and you could see something similar.
Which is why we went back to 2 years from 3.
No, it became the better option either. It became the better of the two. And I think that's what this bill, as amended, is attempting to do as well, the better of the options. I see Representative Millet's head shaking, so maybe it looks like perhaps the bill is adjusting both for positive increases and no, I'm not going to try to read her Zoom square, but.
Well, thank you. And we'll really dig into it.
We'll work that out at work session.
Yes. Either way, it's a good bill and it's good policy.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kaczynski? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Before I close the public hearing, I would just ask our staff analyst if for the work session, there have been a lot of numbers that have been tossed around in terms of what the student loss has been. And if you could come up with as definitive number as you possibly could for the work session, that would be helpful. The department during the budget process, I think they talked about a 2.7, 2.9 loss, which could calculate into about 4,500, 5,000 students. We've heard 8,000. So it would just be helpful if you could, as best you could, give us the best number that we could work with in terms of student loss over the last year. And I guess it would be relative to the count from last October. But
Sure.
that would be helpful for work session.
Yes.
Okay. Any other items for work session? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing on LD 651. Thank you, Representative Millet, and we'll certainly take this up at work session. And Senator Dougherty, I just want to, did you have any time constraints?
Hopefully not. No, I have this bill. I have 3 bills in the afternoon, so I think I should be all set.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if you wanted us to take yours out of order at this point.
I'm game for whatever.
Okay.
For once, I have an easygoing schedule.
Okay. All right. Then we'll just stay with the schedule. So next up, we have LD 1014. And we have Representative Greenwood, who is the sponsor of the bill. Good morning, Representative. Thank you for being with us. I think this is probably the first time you've been to the Education Committee this session. So thank you for being here. And we're ready for you to present LD 1014. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Brennan and my esteemed colleagues on the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is Representative Randall Greenwood, and I represent House District 82, which includes the towns of Litchfield, Monmouth, and my hometown of Wales in both Androscoggin and Kennebec counties. I'm here today to present LD 1014, an act to repeal the school bus reimbursement formula and to have it replaced with the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act. This bill comes after lengthy discussion with one of my two school superintendents on how the current process works and how this bill will hopefully resolve some of those issues and give much needed stability to our local school departments. I spoke with him this morning, but regrettably, due to a scheduling conflict, Superintendent Andrew Carlton of RSU 4 is unable to testify today, but he will be submitting written testimony in strong support of this particular bill. I thank you for your time and consideration, and will do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Representative Greenwood. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Representative Greenwood? Seeing none. Thank you very much. And we will now move to public comment. And the person I see in the queue is Stephen Bailey from Maine School Board Management Association.
Representative Brennan, I think Representative Stearns might have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Stearns. Did you have a question for Representative Greenwood?
Yes, my
Okay.
apologies for being once again, a slow hand raiser.
Well, if it were Jeopardy, you would have lost your turn.
I would be a poor person if I were on Jeopardy. Representative Greenwood, thank you for bringing this forward, and we discussed it briefly when you were conceiving the bill. And I'm wondering if the good superintendent could be available maybe for the work session and to follow up a little bit, if we could flesh it out as to how the differences might be between the current model and what would be the benefits of moving to an EPS model. If we're going to need to really flesh that out a little bit. It's a new idea, and so we want to turn that around and look at it from every different angle. So if the good superintendent could be available, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Representative Stearns. I would be happy to ask him once we have a scheduled date for the work session, and I'll be happy to work with him on that, and we can flesh out, we can explain the issue that brought this to light, and then the possible solutions.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Stearns. Any other questions for Representative Greenwood? Okay. Seeing none from the committee, we will, do we have Mr. Bailey, Sam?
So Representative Mr. Bailey communicated that Eileen King will
I know he was
be
gonna
covering.
He might not be available. Okay.
Oh, but Eileen King is going to present his testimony instead.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
And also for Representative Greenwood, we do have the work session currently advertised for the afternoon of April 21st, if you wanted to check in with your superintendent.
Okay. So we're just waiting for Ms. King at this point. Oh, there she is. Welcome back, Ms. King.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Not quite. Good morning, Representative Brennan, members of the Educational and Cultural Affairs Committee. I am Eileen King, Deputy Executive Director of Maine School Management Association, testifying on behalf of the legislative committees of the Maine School Boards Association and Maine School Superintendents Association. Superintendents opposed this bill and the school boards were neither for nor against. Our concern is purchases don't belong in the EPS funding, but are rather capital items that can be replaced every 10 to 12 years. In reality, some school districts are running school buses 15 plus years. There is an allocation for transportation costs in EPS, but that's for what it costs to keep the system running, not the purchase of vehicles. The state does support the purchase of new school buses based on mileage and the age of the bus, but certain criteria has to be met. School districts can and do purchase buses on their own. Moving bus purchase into the EPS transportation allocation will allow those SAUs with the ability to buy more buses more frequently to do so, while less affluent SAUs may not have the ability. Right now, districts with less ability to pay have an option to apply for state funding. The other concern we have is if bus purchases, which can run anywhere from $90,000 to $100,000, were moved into EPS, it would drive up the cost of education for all schools. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. King. Are there questions from members of the committee? Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. King, did your group, when you discussed this, have a concern with if we put it into the EPS formula, those school systems that contract out their school transportation entirely would be in a different spot than those school systems that do indeed purchase their own their own fleet, if you will, or their own units and run their own. Did that come up?
We did not discuss those districts that contract for bus services. What we did discuss is the process, and the concern for safety is that if a school district is needing a school bus, then they submit an application to the Department of Education, the Transportation Division, and that division has a history of our buses and the age and the miles. And we're concerned that if this moves into the EPS, that that information, buses will be kept on the roads longer than they should be, that we won't have the safety guidelines that there have been in place. And once again, that the schools that can afford to buy buses will continue to purchase them, but the schools that are less affluent and are, struggle with their budgets will try to keep their buses on longer than they should be. And what we know is it's not mileage that kills our buses, it's rust. That's really is the determining factor that does kill our buses. So when you have all of your required bus inspections going on and those reports going in, we have a clearinghouse that oversees the safety of our school buses and whether they can stay on the roads or not. So we were just concerned mostly about the fact that we would have districts that would continue to be able to purchase buses when others couldn't afford to.
Thank you.
Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. King. And Representative Stearns may have just touched on this, but I just wanted to follow up on the work session. If we could potentially have somebody from the Department of Education talk about what maybe some of the trickle-down effects would be on the funding. We've heard about that in other testimony, that by changing some of those fundings, some of those formulas, that it would change money that school districts would get in an unintended consequence kind of way. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about that, how that would affect, if this did go into effect, what that would look like.
I will get that for you. Yes.
I'm sure we'll have somebody from DOE at the work session on the bill, assuming that a number of us still probably need some background and understanding a little bit more about bus, not only purchases, but how that works within school funding formula. So thank you. Representative Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the work session, I'd like to understand better the $5 million cap per year for school bus purchases, and how that was derived, and when was the last time it was updated, and roughly how many buses that actually gets versus need. I think that would be very helpful. And then I see in the department's testimony that there's a removal of a $9 million cap. I'm not quite sure where that came from, so I'd like to understand that a little bit better as well. Thank you.
Okay. Again, are there any questions to the committee of Ms. King? Seeing none. Thank you very much for being here. And I guess we may see you at the next bill as well.
Thank you for your time.
All right. So before we conclude the public hearing on 1014, do members of the committee want to convey information requests or other requests to our staff analyst? I know I need a little bit of tutelage and background on this issue. I'm assuming that's true for other people on the committee. Representative Millette has asked for information, as well as Representative Salisbury. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also ask for the work session some information about where we stand on the plan for green buses or electric vehicles. That was something we discussed in the 129th, and if we could have an update on that plan and the prices of those buses also, please. Thank you.
That's correct. That was Senator Vitelli's bill that we discussed last session. Okay, any other questions? Well, Representative Greenwood, thank you for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the work session. And at this point, I will close the public hearing on LD 1014. And we will now move to, we'll open the public hearing on LD 1198. And we have Representative Carlo. Welcome, Representative. It's good to see you today. And I think this is your first time before the Education Committee this session, correct?
This is.
Okay. Well, we can be pretty difficult to deal with, but I'm sure you'll be okay. So we're ready. If you'd like to present LD 98, that would be great.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. I am Representative Nathan Carlo, and I am pleased to be with you this morning to present brief testimony in support of legislation I have introduced that supports fiscally responsible accounting practices for public school districts. In addition to my legislative service, I also sit on the MS-86 School Board of Directors, which is comprised of the towns of Buxton, Hollis, Standish, Leamington, and Fry Island. This is the largest SAD in the state of Maine, and our budget for this fiscal year exceeds $50 million. Currently, state law does not permit the setting aside of any amount greater than 5% of the total budget. This has created precarious fiscal challenges in the past and makes it challenging for school districts to keep an eye on the future, particularly in the context of saving money for large-scale investment in facilities, projects, and academic programming. This legislation is designed to help school districts who may want additional flexibility to save funds for these capital projects as opposed to contracting debt through a bond or other type of bank loan. In discussions that I've had with one other member, a question was raised, a valid question that I'd point out, was raised about whether or not an increase in savings would affect the money received through the EPS formula. So I'd like to preemptively state for the committee's awareness in anticipation of a similar question that I have verified that this does not have any relation to the EPS formula, and an increase in savings does not affect state subsidy. It's my understanding that Maine sets a very low bar in terms of what amount it permits school districts to carry forward relative to other states. And while I'm not fully committed to the 15% provision that's outlined in the bill, I would like to start the conversation about how we can encourage school districts to be more fiscally responsible by offering alternative pathways other than assuming debt and the interest that debt naturally accrues. I would emphasize that this is a bipartisan bill, and I was happy that Representative Bailey, who is both from a neighboring House district and a neighboring school district, that he was in agreement that now is a good time to increase this limit. School districts have a lot of work to do to rebuild and rethink how education works, particularly in the context of COVID-19, and that's going to take prudent fiscal policy to support that work. For these reasons, I ask the committee to vote in favor of the bill, and I also can invite our superintendent and other district officials to participate in the work session if the committee would find that helpful. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee at this time.
Great. Thank you, Representative. We appreciate your comments. And I see that Representative McCray has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Carlo. Representative.
Good morning.
It's very good to see you. I suspect I know the answer to this, but I'd like to, I mean, you're more intimate with this exact proposal than we could possibly be at this point. So I kind of understand why a district, if they had the ability to set aside funds up to 15%, that they would want to. And you said that it would not affect the EPS formula, et cetera, et cetera. So let's suppose, would this have any effect on districts that either don't have the ability to set money aside or don't have the desire? Would it have any effect on their funding, or should those districts care if you can do that or not?
No, the bill does not affect those school districts who do not have the ability or do not have the desire to set additional money aside. It pertains only to those school districts who want to set aside additional money.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative, for your question.
Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Carlo, for bringing this bill forward. You mentioned a 5% cap. Currently, it's 3%. Is that correct?
Thank you for the correction. I believe it is 3%.
Okay. And might I have a follow-up?
Yes.
One of the common complaints or objections to increasing the amount of undesignated fund balance is that greedy superintendents or school boards or budget managers will hoard away large amount of taxpayers' money. But in effect, in reality, it is only the taxpayers that can vote to put that money away and vote on how it's to be used moving forward. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree that through, and I can talk more about how we have a very unique process in terms of how we draft our budget. We have an advisory panel that's made up of community members that provides input on our budget process. But ultimately, it's the taxpayers who decides where the money goes and even if there will be a budget increase at all. So that was a good observation on your part, Representative Stearns, and I appreciate you pointing that out.
Mr. Chair, if I might have one more quick follow-up.
Yes, certainly.
Representative Carlo, would one of the motivations for this legislation be so that a local school unit could flex a little bit with various revenues as they change year to year and be able to dip into those funds to reduce large fluctuations to the local property taxpayer?
I think that could be a purpose for the bill, giving school districts that additional flexibility. I think that the bill provides stability or would help or facilitate a process to provide additional facility through increased savings. But I think that whether or not school districts wanted to use it for that purpose would be up to them.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative McCray.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies for rising to speak again. Representative, you may or may not be able to answer this question, but it seems to me I recall that, like in the 129th, we addressed at least a very similar issue, and I'm curious, with these fund balances, do they need to have a designated purpose? It was Representative Stearns that made me recall that. Or is it a fund balance that could be at 10% and all of a sudden you have a need, you just take the money out and do it to that? Or must it be dedicated when it is put in there?
So I can, Representative, thank you for that question. I can follow up with you on that, but it's my current understanding that if it's going to a capital improvement account, then it needs to have a specific purpose. But if it's just going into the carry forward, then there does not need to be a purpose for that money. That's my understanding, but I will follow up with you.
Very good. And perhaps Mr. Senft can bring that to the work session anyway. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Again, any questions from Representative Carlo from members of the committee? And Representative Carlo, I just have one question. It's also just blends into a question for our staff person. I'm assuming that at this point, you probably don't know how we got to 3% when the current law, and then you did mention that you thought 15, I'm not going to say it was arbitrary, but I don't suspect that there was some accounting rationale to get to 15%. Is that correct?
The 15% threshold, and I thank you for that question. It was based on conversations that I have had with my own superintendent and our business manager. That seems to be the number that they would prefer. I understand though that there are concerns that number might be too high for comfort for members of the committee, which is why I think that this is more about starting the conversation about starting to increase that limit. I think that 15% probably is a bit too high. Maybe 10% would be a more reasonable figure. But I'll leave that up to committee members to make that determination.
Okay. No, I guess I was just wondering that I know in city government, in terms of having a reserve account, it's usually tied to an accountant recommendation in terms of your overall budget, and then a certain percentage that you would have that would be consistent in your reserve account. So I didn't know if you were thinking along those lines, or again, that the 15 was just a number that you arrived at in consultation with your superintendent. So thank you. And maybe Ms. Seneff, for our work session, if you could find out why we're at 3% now, and is there some accounting metric or procedure that would dictate what is a standard reserve account, what size it should be in the public sector?
Sure.
Thank you. So again, any questions from members of the committee of representative? Seeing none. Thank you very much. And it was good to see you. And we will now go to public comment on LD 1198.
And the only person we have with us, Representative, is Eileen King. The other two are not present.
Okay, so the only person we have is Eileen King. Okay, great. That narrows down the options. And I will just let Senator Daughtry know that even though it's close to noontime, we will go ahead and push through to her bill after this. Ms. King, thank you for being here. We're always glad to see you, and we have seen you more than once or twice today. So thank you very much.
Good morning, almost afternoon, Representative Brennan,
Right.
members of the Educational Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Eileen King, Deputy Executive Director of the Maine School Superintendents, Maine School Management Association, testifying on behalf of the legislative committees of the Maine School Boards Association and Maine School Superintendents Association in support of LD 1198. School boards and superintendents support this bill because we believe it makes us better stewards of taxpayer money. The percent carry forward was last expanded in 2009 when there was supplemental American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funds for schools due to the impact of the recession on the economy. At that time, the 3% carry forward cap was eliminated for fiscal years 2008 and 9 up and 2014 and 15. It is still unclear what the long-term impact of the pandemic will have on state funding, but appears wise to increase fund balances at the local level as Maine receives its share of the $122 billion in American Rescue Plan and Secondary Elementary Relief Fund. That share is estimated at just over $400 million. Federal guidance calls for using the funding to keep schools open and to address the disruptions to teaching and learning result from the pandemic. We believe increasing the local fund balance limit will help us use that money wisely and is in the best interest of our students. And working with our colleagues with Maine ASBO, the cash flow is that this would allow is incredibly important, especially when we're dealing with grants that are set up like our federal and state grants that are set up on a reimbursement model. Therefore, we have to spend the money first, and then we have to request reimbursement. And sometimes we have to wait a few months for that reimbursement that can impact our normal cash flow. One superintendent, in order to keep his payroll going, had to take out a $5 million note while he waited for reimbursement for federal funds that he used to open his schools safely. All of our federal grants, Title 1A, 2A, 4A, 5, IDEA, ESSERS 1, 2, and 3, and CRF funds, they're all set up this way. When the deadline for spending the CRF grants was December 30th of 2020. There were some districts that were not going to be able to utilize these grants because they didn't have enough cash in the bank to cover their payroll. While they waited 2 months, it was taking to get reimbursed from the state. While the state also, to their credit, did improve the return rate on reimbursement, and that has become much shorter. However, they still need to expend funds up front, and that does reduce the amount of money they have on hand to run the rest of their districts. The current 3% unassigned fund balance may not even cover 1 month of payroll, let alone the utility bills and other invoices that need to be paid on a regular basis. If an emergency were to come up, there would be a short-term cash flow issue while waiting for a bank or a special town district meeting to make this happen. While 3 to 6 months would be more ideal, which would be 25 to 50%, the minimum we'd like to see would be no less than 15, but closer to 25. And I think it's important to note that I believe, and I guess I would need to check this, but I do believe that municipalities can carry up to 10% in an unfunded designated balance. So at least if our towns and municipalities can do that, we'd certainly like to have our school districts considered for that same opportunity. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. King. Are there questions from members of the committee? Senator Woodson.
Thank you, sir. Ms. King, I often hear from taxpayers the statement or criticism of, how can a school carry this large amount of money and when they keep increasing our taxes? I mean, how do the superintendents of school board answer that dilemma?
And that's an excellent question, Senator Woodson. One of the points that Representative Stearns made is that, first of all, school districts, 3% is not a huge amount of money, especially if there's an emergency and something comes up. Number two, as I mentioned, the reimbursement for their federal grants, they need to have some funds to continue to run their district while they're getting reimbursed for funds that they had to expend up front and then get reimbursed for those grants. Many times as a superintendent, I use my carry forward to reduce taxes. So at the end of the year, if I had carry forward funds, for example, I had expected to hire so many new teachers with a family plan and I didn't hire I had hired them with a, depending on what you had expected to expend and things changed and you had money left over, that money was used to reduce the commitment to the taxpayers. So in some ways that was helpful for the taxpayers. I didn't continue to increase taxes due to my budget. Also, Representative McCray mentioned that we talked about this in the 129th, and Representative McCray, I think it was the reserve fund bill that we talked about, and that was tightly aligned to cost centers. So you were allowed to set up a reserve fund that aligned with the cost centers. And prior to that, reserve funds were really just for capital expenditures. So those reserve funds, that bill would allow schools to create reserve funds that were tied to the cost centers, but then again would need approval for expenditures. So Senator Woodson, I'm sorry, I kind of jumped over to another answer, but I don't have a history of how much money schools do carry forward. But I do know that the schools that in my experience is that any money that was carried forward was usually put towards a capital improvement plan with voter approval, or it was used to reduce the tax commitment to the taxpayers.
Thank you. That helps.
Thank you. Representative McCray was next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here yet again, Ms. King. You may have longevity enough to recall the situation prior to the 3%, but you may be too young.
I am.
But before the 3%, I think somebody said 2004 or whenever it was, doesn't matter. Before that, was it unlimited or was there no ability to have one? Was the 3% a reduction of it, an increase? And maybe this is something for the work session, I don't know.
I've always known, I became superintendent of schools in 2002, and the 3% cap was there in 2002. The 3% cap was lifted during the last recession, and that was lifted for a while, and then it went back into effect. But I could not speak to the 3% cap prior to 2002 and why, and the history to arriving to a 3% cap when our municipalities have a 10% cap.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Ms. King? Okay. Thank you very much for being with us today. And I don't see you on the list for the next bill.
No, thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you. So that concludes our people who have signed up for public hearings. I'm assuming there's somebody else, Sam.
Correct, Representative. That's everyone.
So I would ask members of the committee if they have questions that we would like to pose to our analysts to have available at work session. Anything? Okay. Representative Carlo, thank you. We'll see you at the work session. And I will now officially close the public hearing on LD 1198. And we now will go open the public hearing on LD 1206. And we will turn to our Senator Daughtry. Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you for being with us.
It is technically afternoon. Good afternoon, Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and fellow distinguished colleagues of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is still Maddie Daughtry, and last time I checked, I am still the state senator for Senate District 24, which includes the towns of Brunswick, Freeport, Hartsville, North Yarmouth, and Pownell. And I am pleased to be here to present LD 1206, an act regarding the terms of Office of the Director of the Maine State Museum Commission, the State Librarian, and the Director of the Maine Arts Commission. It's a bill that I've sponsored on behalf of the Governor's Office. Under current law, the Director of the Maine State Museum Commission, the State Librarian, and the Director of the Maine Arts Commission serve indefinitely, subject to removal only for cause, a high standard. This bill would amend the terms of office for the 3 directors of Maine's cultural agencies to better align those statutes with the language found in enabling legislation of other state commissions. This bill would give the commissions that hire the director a greater ability to review the work of the director and ensure that the director is responsive not only to the commissioners, but the public as a whole, as well as all the various stakeholders for these cultural agencies. This change is grandfathered so that it would only apply to directors appointed to these positions after January 1st, 2021. A representative of the Governor's Office is here to speak today on this bill in more detail, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I would just add, the way I look at this is no one should be appointed to something for life. Anyone in a position, I mean, all of us are responsible to our voters, and constituencies, even within cultural agencies, should be as well. Especially, you know, as we're trying to make sure these cultural agencies have the support they need and that they're moving fully into the 21st century. So I do have some personal background, having majored in studio art and worked with many of these agencies, and I'm absolutely in awe and grateful for the incredible work that they do, but also was happy to be able to present this, what I think is a necessary common sense measure. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments in the bill. And are there any questions from the committee for the senator? I see Representative Stearns and Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Senator Daughtry. I believe I understand the angst about serving an indefinite term, or basically a life term. However, do you have any reservations about the possibility of these positions becoming very political and seesawing back and forth with perhaps different governors coming in? And appointments being made that way, and losing some stability, so to speak.
No, I think this is something we worry about with many of the appointments that we see that come before us, whether it's the State Board of Education or various other aspects. And I think this is really where it becomes really important to look at the authorizing commission and what those length of terms are. I think that's one of the greatest tools we have in our democracy to ensure that we have quality bipartisan overlap amongst administrations, and making sure that those terms for commissioners are not 2-year terms like we see with our high turnover, and looking at greater lengths of terms, 5, 6, 7 years, that you're able to have that institutional knowledge. And that way, I think we actually get a much better accurate depiction of our population as a whole. And especially with, with the arts, you need to be making sure that you're not having, the same folks coming back and forth, when you really need to be making sure that we have responsive, different agencies. So I do think that is a concern, but I think it's up to us to look at how the commission is made up and making sure that we're getting people in and out of these positions so that everyone has a chance to serve. Hopefully that answers your question, Representative.
It does. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Daughtry, for bringing this bill forward. Representative Stearns stole part of my question about, are things now going to fluctuate and reduce effectiveness? But either can you answer this, or perhaps for the work session, can we have some background information on the evaluation process as it exists now? And if there is some sort of plan to address the evaluation system in conjunction with this change? Thank you.
This would be definitely where I would defer to Mr. Seneff as well as Mr. Feely, who will be speaking after me, so we can make sure we get that. And also, making sure that we're looking at the authorizing legislation for all of these different cultural agencies to be able to compare and contrast of the initial, thought and process and where we're looking at now. And the other thing is, really taking a look at making sure that, we have a good system that enables this sort of ebb and flow and push and pull amongst various stakeholders.
Okay, other questions for the senator?
I mean, I'm happy to talk about art all afternoon. I don't get to do this all.
That's another bill at another time. Okay. We will now go to public comment, and I see that Tim Feely from the governor's office is here for public comment. Sam?
Yes, Representative, that's all.
Great.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Well, it is. It's good afternoon, Mr. Feely. Good to see you. And thank you for being with us today. And we're ready for any comments that you'd like to make about the senator's bill.
Okay, thank you, Senator Raftery, Representative Brennan, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. I am Tim Feely, Deputy Legal Counsel in the Office of the Governor. I'm here today to testify in support of LD 1206. I want to thank Senator Daughtry for her willingness to serve as a legislative sponsor for this governor's bill. This bill would amend the terms of office for a newly hired but not a current director of the 3 cultural agencies to better align these terms with the terms of other state boards and commissions. Last year, the executive director of the Maine Arts Commission left the employment of the Arts Commission, and the governor was interested in who may fill the role of the next director. She took a quick look at the statute, which shows the governor appoints the commission and the commission hires the director. This bill would not change that provision of law. However, there was something unusual that we noticed in the current statute, and it's that these directors are hired for an indefinite term subject to removal for cause. That term, indefinite term subject to removal for cause, only appears exactly one other time outside of these 3 enabling statutes. That's the director of the EMS board. I'm not sure why it's there. We're not dealing with that in this bill. And it's been pointed out to me that the Maine Historic Preservation Commission, which is also in Title 27, is only to be removed for cause, but it doesn't use that indefinite term language. Again, that's not addressed in this bill. Removal for cause would be the kind of protection we would expect a position of the classified service of the state to hold. An example of this would be most state employees. Generally, a person in this situation enjoys a constitutionally protected property interest in their employment, and they may only be discharged with notice and hearing. Serves at the pleasure of the hiring authority would be consistent with most unclassified positions. I'm in an unclassified position. This is where the appointing authority may appoint and remove persons to and from these positions at their pleasure. Examples of unclassified positions are Assistant Attorneys General, the Executive Director of the Maine Human Rights Commission, Executive Director of the Land Use Planning Commission, although they serve a term that's coterminous with the Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, as well as all the governor's commissioners are unclassified. There's some examples of other boards that employ a director who serves at the pleasure of the board. It's the Maine Dairy Promotion Board, the Maine Potato Board, the Efficiency Maine Trust, the Dental Practices Board, the Board of Licensure in Medicine, and the State House and Capitol Park Commission were just a few examples that I found. The governor felt that this change was warranted at this time because of the opening at one of the commissions, but we're not questioning the work of any current or past directors. We feel that these are important positions that can and do influence public policy in the state. We believe that by making this change, we have the opportunity to make the directors more accountable to their boards and the work that they oversee. And this will ultimately make the work of the boards more impactful in this state. We urge you to support LD 1206 and I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Feely. Again, it's good to see you. And are there any questions from members of the committee? I don't see any at this point, but we will let you know about the work session. And if necessary, hopefully you'll be available at the work session.
Be happy to.
Thank you. So at this point, before we, I don't see any other people to testify. Is that correct, Sam?
Correct, Representative.
Okay, so I'll ask the question, if any members of the committee have questions or information that they're requesting for the work session from our staff analyst, now would be the time to do it. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing on LD 1206. And unless there's any other business before the committee, I am asking for a corner caucus immediately on the conclusion of the public hearing of those people on the committee that are part of the my corner caucus. It's not a birthday celebration or anything. And Senator Rafferty and I did not schedule this in a way so that we get early so that I would have the afternoon to celebrate my birthday. That was purely by happenstance. But
Sure.
I would call a corner caucus immediately following our work. So Representative Stearns, is there anything else to come before the committee at this point?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so we are scheduled for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I hope that everybody has a good afternoon.